welcome back to Learning Curves. I'm Anastasia, and today we are going to talk about sewing, but not a sewing machine. We're going to talk about all of the other things that you need to have in your arsenal, basic, entry-level toolbox equipment to tackle most of your sewing projects. So this is like home improvement projects. You need like a measuring tape and a level, a hammer, and a drill. So with sewing projects, there really aren't that many tools that you need, although I am going to discuss sort of basic low-end versus high-end options. I'm going to show you what tools I use myself and talk about pros and cons of different features of different equipment. So let's dig in. Have you guys seen that tweet or whatever it was on the webs that said, I used my mom's fabric scissors to cut wrapping paper and now the police are here? Don't use fabric scissors on anything but fabric. Here's why. You know how when you're cutting wrapping paper and you get the scissors in just the right amount of closedness and you can just slide it through the wrapping paper? It has to be the right kind of wrapping paper. You gotta get it right at the right spot and it just cuts it without having to like, oh man. Certain fabrics are easier to cut than others. And actually from most of my cutting out pattern pieces, I don't actually use scissors. We'll get into what I use in a second. But if you are using scissors to cut your pattern pieces, it's really frustrating when you've got to claw at the fabric. It can also pull some of the threads within a woven fabric. It can damage your fabric. I mean, fabric's not cheap. So there's a reason why fabric scissors are fabric scissors exclusively. But I have quite a few pairs of scissors. For the most part, I like to have like a tiny sort of embroidery scissors, something that I can pack easily into small kits if I'm working on a cross-stitch project or a quilt. I have some utilitarian scissors that I kind of don't care what happens to them. You need another cutting device, a seam ripper. I have a couple of them. I'm so good at losing them. Seam rippers are designed with a ball on one end, a point on another, and then the curve between is also very sharp. So the curve is supposed to be able to do cutting itself. The pointy part can dig under stitches to rip them, and then the round part can dig under those stitches without piercing the fabric. Also, when you're getting the pointy part in, the round part isn't going to also stab stuff. So you may be interested in purchasing an actual seam ripper, but an X-Acto knife, what is that? What is an X-Acto knife? An X-Acto knife also works great. You can change the blades out in those too. I don't know if anyone's ever sharpened a seam ripper. I guess somebody probably has, but something that is optional, but I have added to my arsenal and that I really enjoy using is a rotary cutter. There was a learning curve. This is a learning curve. And if you're using a rotary cutter, you need a self-healing mat. There's a specific mat you're supposed to use underneath it so you're not like pizza cuttering into your dining room table or desk or whatever you're using. Those are expensive. They're expensive. Mine's 18 by 24 and it's actually the second one I have because the first one I got, it was stored not hanging. It was stored just on the ground and it bowed. It like curved. Why can't I show you what a curve looks like? So it won't lay flat. And that's a problem for, you know, precision. So it was enough of a pain that I waited for a good coupon from Joann's and got another one. I also, before making this video, looked up on Facebook Marketplace. There are so many people who are selling them for, like, I don't think they know what they go for. Because they look like they shouldn't be that expensive, but they are. So maybe look on Facebook Marketplace. But I do really enjoy using a rotary cutting tool. It's so fast. It sometimes doesn't feel super precise. So there are times that I do prefer to use a pair of scissors. The next thing you need, which you maybe don't know that you need, but is so important and you probably already have, is an iron. And preferably an iron with steam settings. The steam or being able to spray water through the iron on fabrics is gonna be a game changer. Just trust me, you're gonna need it. As we start getting into projects, we'll be using it and you can very easily tell the difference. I was almost gonna say watch my Batman cape video, but I haven't posted that. If you have an iron, you almost definitely have an ironing board. I do recommend them because of their shape, but I have in a pinch used a towel folded in half on a dining room table, or I know some people iron on their beds, but that's, I mean, your bed's probably soft enough that it's gonna like give, right? I don't know. I think an ironing board is worth it, but an iron is a must. Another thing you need, one more sharp thing, can you guess it? Pins! You need pins. Now, caveat here, a lot of people have recently started to use clips. They are pricey. Oh, they're expensive. You can get a pack of pins for a couple bucks. And it's like, the clips are like $2 each. I do like using pins that have a flat, larger head on them. Not the round head, but you know what I love? You don't have to have this, but I think it's so much fun. Magnetic pin cushions. Oh my gosh, I love it. Not only is it so satisfying to pick up pins with it, it's super fast to pick up pins. It keeps them secure. Mine's pink, so it's cute. Actually, I wonder if it's like the same color as this nail polish. They don't travel great. It's like stuff hits it. Something else you'll need is a ruler. I really enjoy the transparent, I think they're called quilting rulers. I think they're kind of a must-have if you do get a rotary cutter. I have two. I have one that's 3.5 inches wide by 24 inches and another that's 6 inches wide by 24 inches, I think. I find them super helpful when I'm doing right angles. I can like line it up. Also, since they're transparent, as I'm extending a line down further, if I'm drawing a very long line on a pattern, I can make sure I'm lined up on that. What did I use it for recently? Oh, I hemmed my daughter's curtains in her bedroom. Her bedroom's like sloped. So this side of the curtain was like this far and this side of the curtain was like this far. I gotta do it in my other daughter's room, so if you wanna see how I measured and hemmed IKEA curtains without actually even taking them down, I'd love to show you. Let me know in the comments. I find that they're so helpful. It's not until you're using it that you're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. It's easy to measure. It's gonna be really helpful. If you already have a ruler, you're not wanting to invest in other equipment, you'll be fine. If you find yourself enjoying projects, then I very much recommend that you add it to a to-buy list. I'm gonna add this one on here, but I'm sure you already have it at home. A fabric marking utensil. I usually use chalk or a washable marker or a pencil to transfer my patterns. I know that those are going to wash off of my projects, right? I don't have to worry about them staining fabrics. You know, I might not use a pencil if I'm super concerned about it. I might use a marker that's complementary to whatever I'm making. I don't sew very fancy materials, but if I did, then maybe I would use another material. But the two types of intentionally purchased fabric marking tools that I have are tailor's chalk, which they have a chalkier tailor's chalk and a waxier tailor's chalk. I prefer the waxier one, you get more precise lines. And what else I've purchased is a heat transfer fabric marking tool. I have a friend who made her niece a baby quilt and she embroidered squares on the quilt before assembling it. She drew over the pattern with this heat transfer pencil. Then you flip the pattern so that the part you drew on is on the fabric. So you gotta make sure that you draw on the wrong side, put it on the right side, unless you do it on the inside. And anyway, you use an iron to press on it and the heat makes the markings transfer down onto your fabric from the transfer surface. And that's it. It's very likely that you already have most of these on hand, but if you don't, I can link to some of my favorites in the description. That's it. If you'd like to continue following along the series, How to Sew for Very, Very Beginners or Sewing 101, please subscribe. If you like this video, please like this video, and I'll see you next week. Bye. I don't understand why so many people are like, sewing is women's work, but using saws and awls and lathes and other sharp tools, that's man's work. And it's like, a sewing machine has oil in it. It's literally a machine. It goes brum, brum, brum. I mean, an industrial, like, brum. That's my impression of industrial sewing machine. But it's like, you need this kind of sword and this kind of sword. Not that scissors and seam rippers are swords, but I mean, just because we're making fluffy stuff doesn't mean we're using fluffy stuff, whatever. Anyway, I digress. What are my hands? I mean, I know what they are, but what are they doing?